A few words about the six sources. I've mentioned before that these are the foundation elements of our Unitarian Universalist theology. They come from many different attributes of being human. And we're going to talk about the most recently put in here today. These sources are not pick and choose. Whether you like some of them or not is really immaterial because they're all part of our beginnings, our origin, and now our heritage. A few minutes ago, we read the six sources as I shared. They drive and inform our principles, our seven principles, our ethical values, and our spiritual deepening. In other words, we're not people that believe just whatever we want or whatever comes to mind. But we do have sources and we do have ethical principles to live by. We now come to the last one that was just added a number of years ago. What is its meaning for us in the 21st century? Now, let me say up front that my original intent for this service, hence the title, was to be slightly more, perhaps intellectual, talking about two different definitions for this source. I really decided to go into a different direction recently given the tragedies that have gone on in the world in the last couple of weeks, and you'll see what I'm saying later. The source, though, troubles some people. The phrase spiritual teachings of earth-centered traditions annoys some of the more fervently humanist among us. It might be just a little mystical, or religion light, or for some people, religion heavy. The phrase can also refer to the Wiccan movement that some non-Unitarian Universalist folks say is sacrilegious, or pagan, or satanic. We, on the other hand, prefer to call it earth-centered spirituality or tradition because it's really focused on the earth and the rhythms of nature, which is missing in our other traditions, really. Now, I should also add here that I have attended a number of Wiccan celebrations over the years, and they really don't move me very much. That isn't because they're not valuable or that they don't have deep meaning for the participants. I'm no doubt missing something important, but I don't connect with them in the ways that I do, for example, with a Buddhist ceremony. But I don't get the flavor of power, for example, of communion within the Christian tradition. So it depends on, I think, our own traditions. I do persist in attending them, however, because I think I have more to learn. If I'm going to be open-hearted and open-minded, there's always more to learn. So I'm going to keep going wherever I go next. There's always more to learn, and the sixth source is one of them, and we ignore it at our peril. I think the debate on whether is it pagan or neo-pagan or earth-centered spirituality is really unimportant. But let me say a couple words about that. In fact, Carol and I had a good conversation before the service started, and she teaches Latin, so she knows of what she speaks. The word pagan is a twitchy kind of word these days, in America especially. It's not considered positive. It's interpreted to mean someone who's anti-Christian. And actually, when you think about it, if you know the word and its origin, it's partly true. The original popular meaning of the word pagan, and I'm not going to use the Latin word, so Carol, that's okay. In Roman times, the definition was essentially someone of the country. We might use the term country bumpkin, or maybe even redneck, to understand it similarly in our culture. In Roman times, the people of the country were ferociously resisting Christianity, which had taken hold in the urban centers of Rome, and was very slowly being assimilated into the countryside but with great resistance. The people of the countryside who were holding on to their religion of old were in fact the religious conservatives of the day. That's why I'm a little uncomfortable with the word pagan used with this particular source, because I do not think it has a connection to religious conservatism. However, that said, it does have a powerful message. And one phrase in it is what I want to talk about today. Celebrate the sacred circle of life. Now, I'm going to give you a quick outline what I'm going to do this morning. First, I'm going to talk briefly about the symbolism of circles in religion. Then I'm going to briefly say how this sixth source really reminds us of the symbolism of a circle. Then I'm going to propose how we could consider a circle to be a valuable tool as we understand our principles. And at the end, we're going to do a meditation exercise to bring all that into shape. So why the symbolism of a circle? We don't really use it very much in the UUA, or Unitarian Universalist Association. You see the image of a chalice, and it has two circles, but it's very stylized at this point. Personally, I think it looks pretty awful, but I'm just an old-timer now. You don't see a circle used that much in other locales in Unitarian Universalist communities. Now, when I do weddings, very, very often, a couple will choose a ring blessing. And they almost always pick the same one every time, just like Corinthians about love is patient, love is kind. You know, I have it memorized by now. But this particular phrase for a ring blessing is requested over and over. And it goes, the circle is the symbol of the sun and the earth and the whole universe. It is a symbol of perfection and of wholeness. In these rings, the circle is the symbol of unity. Now, taken in a more religious context, you see this use of the circle used as a symbol of perfection and wholeness by many religions. Taoism, of course, uses the yin-yang symbol, which we're all familiar with, as a circle, and the two halves that are flowing into each other of yin and yang, night and day, so on. Buddhism has the symbol of the wheel of the Dharma, the teachings, the wheel of samsara, the cycles of life and death and suffering and enlightenment. The wheel itself is the oldest symbol in Buddhist teachings, and the word dukkha, which is usually translated wrongly as suffering in the West, is really a metaphor for a wheel that is off balance. The mandala is another example of circle symbolism in Buddhist teachings and art, especially from Tibetan tradition. Christianity uses circles in a much more subtle way, such as the halos around saints or around Jesus or other holy figures. If you go to cathedrals in Europe, you will see circles all over the place with stained glass, and in some cases are very, very carefully translated from the ancient circles of the zodiac in the Middle East. If you come to Unitarian Universalism and this particular source, many Wiccan or earth-centered celebrations begin by casting a circle. This part of the ritual is to create a space, a sacred space of protection, of compassion, and shared companionship for everyone within that circle. It's a reminder that there is a sacred space that has been contained and created. And at the end of the service, the ritual, the circle is broken and removed. And really, it is little different from the rituals we do here in the sanctuary every Sunday to begin and to end a service. We just use different words. So, if this particular source gives us an idea about how to use circles as metaphors, as symbols, as other religions do, how could this be applicable for the rest of us? We don't really use circles a lot, as I said, but maybe we do, but we just don't realize it. And this comes to our principles, our 7 principles. One of our other sources talks about the women and men of the world, religions, secular, and so on, the wise people who give us so many insights and teachings, no matter what title they may have or what nationality or what particular heritage they have. And one of these people, who's one of my favorites, is Pema Chodron, who is a Tibetan Buddhist, American Tibetan Buddhist teacher who currently lives in Nova Scotia. She talks in one of her books about the circle that is where we are, that we are the center of our world. Now, I always, when I first read about this, I thought this was ever so slightly egotistical, because I've known people in my life who consider themselves the center of the universe. I have 2 cats who know that they are center of the universe. It is not a happy occasion much of the time. To think of ourselves as the center of the universe can suggest running for president, or being omnipotent, or narcissistic. But of course, that's not what she's talking about at all. It's not a symbol of egotism and me being the center. What she's saying is you are creating a space that begins in our inherent wholeness, our inherent, always there capacity to love, to be compassionate, to be wise, to be enlightened. And then extends in all directions out from our mind and our body. We have the responsibility from that center to move outwards and to care equally in all directions. We need to exhibit compassion and awareness and loving kindness to the degree that we possibly can, and even better. And I'm thinking this might be another meaning of the song that you sang this morning. And I think I have the wording right here. Each thing, the center of the universe is all around us. Each thing, the center of the universe is all around us. So, using Pema Chodron's particular image here, with each of us, with each thing, the circle begins with the individual. We are encouraged to see ourselves as the center, and therefore being responsible to keep the universe around us tidy, harmonious, and as clean and clear as we can. This includes our mind state, our physical appearance, our surroundings, and especially our relationships. Now, our principles, our 7 principles, speak to that responsibility, but they don't really offer, at least as far as I know, rituals to make that happen. And we're going to do that later. I'd suggest that this earth-centered spirituality source does provide such a ritual. And what it does is it helps us speak of our principles by relationship and by responsibility. So consider the first principle that we love so much, the inherent worth and dignity of each or every person. And I would prefer every being. The first principle says that everyone is unique and important and worthy of respect. Now, I'd add an aside here that the word inherent doesn't mean that they automatically get out of jail free card. It means we have to take responsibility for our lives. But another way to understand the first principle is to see each person as the center of the sacred circle of life. Then, with the succeeding principles from there, you move out from that center to speak of the use of the democratic process, the search for truth and meaning, and then eventually ending with the seventh, our one great theological statement. The respectfully interdependent web of all existence, of which we are a part. Now, if we use the symbolism of the sacred circle of earth-centered tradition and evoke it as a recitation of our principles, we're then starting to create a sacred space that starts with us and goes outwards from each other, from ourselves into the universe. We make a commitment to cherish our own worth and dignity, but then we make an equal commitment to cherish the worth and dignity of everyone we meet in that circle. We commit to make, so for example, to use a relational covenant in this congregation. That's really the unison affirmation we speak every Sunday. Now, I'd add one cautionary note about this idea of the sacred circle being each of our principles moving out and out and out and out and out to the universe. A sacred circle means that everything in the circle is sacred and not just the parts we happen to like. That means that people and things who may have evil intent or who are profoundly confused or destructive are part of that circle, and we cannot just say, "Be gone." If we are commit to keep our circle sacred and in harmony, no matter how large or how small, we must find ways to include all such people and beings and help them come to a place of healing. And that place of healing means things like firm boundaries, like you would with a 3-year-old. It also means saying no, that is not appropriate behavior. Also, come to think of it, like with a 3-year-old. But age doesn't matter. The pain that we live in our lives and how we get confused can make us do very unfortunate things. Sometimes the most compassionate thing in the world is to say no. That's part of bringing that circle into existence and maintaining it. So it's one thing to talk about our principles and good intentions, because we have a lot of those. But it's another thing to do a ritual, a real heart ritual to make it come alive. Because heaven knows we're good with thinking in our heads. And one of the great things about this sixth source is that it provides ritual. And so what we're going to do as an ending now is we're going to do a meditation practice to bring that into existence. I'm going to ask you to create a circle of compassion, starting with yourselves and going out in all directions. And we've talked a lot about compassion this year, and we're going to talk about it again next month. This exercise in compassionate thought, word, and deed is important because it's going to consider not just the things we enjoy, or the day outside, or the meal we're going to have soon, but it goes and talks about the tragedies, like Trayvon Martin, who I mentioned earlier, or Sergeant Bales in Afghanistan. Drawing a circle of compassion is going to include all of these people. So I'd like you to get comfortable if you wish. Close your eyes would be nice. Take a moment to get a sense of your body, your heartbeat, your breath, your skin touching your clothing, your mind state, the place of calm or worry or anxiety or maybe impatience that you have. Feel your body on a chair and your feet on the ground. Sense your breath. Imagine yourself as a temple or a sacred space. You, everything in your skin, everything in your mind, your heart, in your body, doing the things your body does, as a temple, as a place of clarity and wisdom. There is your inherent wholeness at work. Now, as you get in touch with that and just feel it, and just accepting who and what you are right now, cast the circle of your awareness into the air that you're breathing. In breath, oxygen, out breath, carbon dioxide. The sounds of others breathing. And try to become a bit more aware of the person sitting beside you, or behind you, or in front of you. Imagine their breathing and their heartbeat. Now expand that awareness to the faces of people you've seen today already. Some who are friends and some who may be strangers. Imagine the people who you had a chance to say hello to before the service. Imagine the people you might have seen this morning before you came to church. Imagine the people here with whom you feel great joy, or those who you might feel some confusion. All these people and their breath and their dreams and their stories are in your sacred circle as you expand it in all directions. Now expand that circle a bit farther to outside this building. The sounds outside, perhaps a car that goes by occasionally, or birds, or the wind. Feel the sun, if you feel it on your face. And then that circle, as it begins to get wider, begins to get a little softer and perhaps uncertain. So try to put in that circle your home that you know so well, or your workplace, or your favorite places to go when you're not here. Think of a place where you've lived before in your life and include that in your circle. Expand it outwards farther and add in the people you've known in your life, no matter how you feel about them. All these things are in your circle. All of them, without exception, deserve your protection and your patience and compassion. Now, as you keep that circle whole, try to include the story of Trayvon Martin and his family in Florida. But then include his assailant, whose ego and fear were twinned when he patrolled his street in search of any stranger. Then imagine Staff Sergeant Robert Bales in Afghanistan, who somehow became deeply, deeply confused, torn with his own suffering. And imagine anyone who carries a weapon who can become a predator, even when they don't wish to. Then place into your circle of protection their victims, all those who suffered because of their deep, confused status. Then place into your circle of compassion all those in the military from any nation who serve because of their duty to their tribe, their nation, their religion, or their culture. Add them in too. That's your circle. Spread as wide as you can spread it. Now imagine the circles of everyone else in this room cast, and their friends, their places, their dreams, their hopes for a sacred space of caring and compassion. Imagine their friends, their relatives, their companions, who might be people who are confused or fearful or angry, but also people who are joyful and happy and free. Who could you leave out of their circles of love and compassion? Sit with that circle and imagining the others around you. Where it begins is with each of us as inherently worthy in casting our own circle, and it ends with all of our circles overlapping. Now, one final image. Imagine yourself sitting at a pond, a very still pond with droplets of rain coming down softly. Imagine each drop of rain coming down and striking the water and sending ripples in all directions. And one of those is yours. And then others coming down, others in this room, others you don't know. And the ripples are spreading and overlapping and merging into one another. And they all become invisible over time. But they expand in all directions and leave no one out, especially not you. Watch that pond and those drops of water for a moment more, and imagine our lives as being cleansing drops of water, spreading compassion and healing everywhere we touch, spreading in all directions, merging in all ways, leaving no one out. Let's take a few more moments and just hold that image of that sacred circle, spreading out in all directions, leaving no one out. And then I'll ring the bell.